All right, let's dive into some of the most powerful and honestly most interesting little words in the English language, modal verbs. I like to think of them as superverbs. They're these tiny words that do some seriously heavy lifting, completely changing the feel of a sentence. But how do they do it? Let's start with a little puzzle.
So I want you to think about this for a second. At first glance, couldn't and wasn't able to. They seem like they mean the exact same thing, right? I mean, either way, you weren't at the party. But this is English, and the nuance is everything. So what's the secret message hiding in there?
And boom, there it is. I couldn't go usually just means it wasn't an option. Maybe you were busy, maybe you weren't invited, but I wasn't able to go. Now that suggests there was an obstacle. You probably tried to get there, but something, traffic, work, who knows, stopped you. That tiny difference is exactly why getting a handle on these verbs is like unlocking a new level of communication.
So let's get into what makes these verbs so super. They are, without a doubt, the essential tools for adding all those subtle shades of meaning, possibility, obligation, permission to everything we say.
So what are they technically? Well, they're a special kind of helper verb. They don't really work on their own. They team up with a main verb to change its meaning. So you get ability, like in I can't swim, or maybe some advice, like in you should go.
You know, for all their power, they actually follow 3 really simple rules, which is kind of nice. First, they never ever change their form. It's always he can, never he cans. Second, they're always followed by the basic infinitive form of a verb without the to. And third, you can't stack them. You'd never say I will can go. See? They're a pretty tidy little group.
Okay, so that's the grammar part. Now let's get to the fun stuff, how we actually use them in real-life conversations. This is where the rubber meets the road. How we navigate asking for things, giving someone the green light, or offering a bit of advice.
And if you look at how these are grouped, it starts to make a lot of sense. You can see how different verbs kind of cluster around social situations, like asking for permission or giving out advice. Let's zero in on a couple of really important pairs.
Let's take may versus can. Both are used to ask for permission, but oh boy, the signals they send are totally different. May I is the gold standard of politeness. Think of it as wearing a suit and tie to ask your question. Can I, on the other hand, is your everyday go-to. It's casual, friendly, perfect for asking a buddy for a favor.
And you see that same kind of nuance with giving advice, but here the stakes can be a little higher. Should is a friendly suggestion. You should try this coffee. It's great. No big deal if you ignore it. But had better? Well, that one comes with a warning. It implies something bad might happen if you don't listen. It's less of a suggestion and more of a hey, pay attention.
All right, moving on from the social stuff. Modals are also the language of logic. They're how we talk about rules, things that are absolutely necessary, and how we make educated guesses about the world around us.
So here, we see verbs that deal with obligation, like must and have to, and then all the words we use to show just how sure we are about something, from a complete shot in the dark to something we're totally convinced of. Okay, this one is a game changer if you can remember it. Must usually comes from inside you. It's your own personal sense of duty. I must finish this. On the other hand, have to, that's for an external rule or pressure. Your boss, a law, a deadline someone else set. The pressure is coming from the outside. And here's where a lot of people get tripped up. Mustn't means do not do this, full stop. It's a strict rule, it's forbidden. But don't have to is the complete opposite. It just means there's no rule forcing you to do something. It's not necessary. So mustn't is a stop sign, and don't have to is a wide open door. I like to think of this as a confidence meter. So say you hear a knock on the door at the same time every day. You'd say, that must be the mail. You're almost 100% sure. If you check the weather forecast, you'd say, the weather should be nice tomorrow. It's a logical guess. But if you just look up and see a few gray clouds, you'd say, it might rain. It's just a possibility.
Okay, for our last section, let's get a little technical. We've thrown around this term semi-modal when talking about words like have to. So what really separates them from the true modals like can or must?
The easiest way to think about semi-modals is that they're the flexible cousins of the true modals. They carry really similar meanings, but they get to break those 3 strict rules we talked about earlier. And because they act more like normal verbs, they're actually a lot more versatile.
So the big differences are pretty simple but super important. True modals have just one form, but semi-modals change, right? I have to, but she has to. And while you can't use true modals in very many tenses, semi-modals give you a ton of flexibility, so you can say things like, I will have to go, or I've been able to work from home.
And this brings us right back to where we started, that little puzzle. The key difference here is general ability versus one specific achievement. Could is for a general skill you used to have, like being able to read as a kid. But for a single, successful action, especially one that was a bit of a challenge, we use was able to. You beat the traffic, you overcame the obstacle, you were able to get to the airport. And now you see why wasn't able to implies you tried and failed.
So let's put it all together. You walk up to a construction site and see this sign. Which word fits? Well, should is just a piece of advice. Can just talks about what's possible. Only must has that non-negotiable, absolute force of a command. It's a rule, plain and simple. And really, that's what this is all about. These aren't just a bunch of boring grammar rules. They're your tools for being precise. Choosing the right one is the difference between just being understood and being truly heard. The power is in those tiny details. So, what are you going to say next?